You're listening to the Imprint Podcast. I'm your host, Micah, and today is Wednesday, Writer's Block Wednesday, and I have the author of the poem from last week on here to talk about what she wrote and give us the true interpretation of her writing. And I gave my spiel on how I felt about it and what I thought, and we both thought it would be cool to have her come on here and just give us some background about her and about why she wrote the poem. So, who am I here with?
Mikayla Baloch.
Okay, so you can go ahead and introduce yourself and we can get started.
Okay. Introductions are always the hardest for me. Okay, so my name is Mikayla Baloch. I am 25. I work in higher ed. I have a bachelor's in counseling and human services and a master's in social justice and human rights. And I'm currently getting another master's in higher and post-secondary education. So when I started writing this poem, I think I was in 9th grade. If I'm not mistaken, I believe it's 9th grade. But for sure it's been quite a while. And so I was cleaning out my closet and I was going through all my old work and everything, and I saw it and I was like, oh, you know, having a conversation with Micah, she said that she wanted to read other people's work, possibly, and I was like, well, I think this is the perfect opportunity.
Yes.
So I gave it to her. I listened to it last week and it was very weird to hear something that I wrote so long ago, and like it kind of brought back like flashbacks and memories, and kind of all came back to me because I kind of forgot. I know it was for a school assignment, but obviously, you know, it was just a poem. I didn't have to give any context behind it, but like,
right,
I kind of like got thrown back into when I was writing it and why I was writing it, and what made me write this specific one. So I'm going to go through each thought is kind of how I'm going to organize it, and so kind of explain what it actually was. But like I told her off the mic, is that she did a pretty good job of interpreting it, and I didn't want to tell her the context of the poem until after she read it and interpreted it for herself, because I wanted to see her perspective on what it was. So I'm going to start off with the first part, which was not because of who I am, but because of what you've done. That in itself, so to give you some context, actually, let me go back.
Yes.
Let me go back. To give you some context, the whole poem is actually about me. There's not a part of it, so when you're thinking about it and I'm reading the lines, it has to do with me, and it's a conversation between me and God.
Okay.
And I'm obviously using personification and metaphors, that type of thing, because it's a poem, and I was trying to tap into my creative writing.
Right,
A lot of it is just about my journey with God in that moment and how I ended up back in His presence, which is so crazy to read at this time of my life. Yes. As Micah talked about a little bit. But anyway, so not because of who I am, but because of what you've done. I was referring to God, and I was very lost. I think I didn't care to live. I actually wrote this poem after the last time I tried to commit suicide. So this is a very emotional topic to talk about, actually.
Yes.
So it's just me saying, like, everything that happened had nothing to do with me, and I know I would have never come from this production of that point in my life. And so the next part was, you've turned me into an angel. When I felt I had nowhere else to go, I decided to run. I ran away from God. I was in the church when I was younger. I didn't like the church when I was younger. I have church trauma. Shocker.
As most of us do.
Yeah.
That's
and
real.
So when I was old enough to make the decision whether or not I was going to go to church, I chose not to. I became an atheist at one point because I was like, there's no way this is my life and God exists. Like, I was like, there's no way the two exist together.
Yeah.
And so I ran away. I didn't have a lot of friends. I had hardly any friends, actually. And so, but somewhere along the line, like, there was always a piece of me that had a pull to what I didn't know. And then like I said, after my last attempt, it kind of like something went off in my head. I was like, oh, okay, I see what's happening now.
Yeah.
And so that's where You Turn Me Into an Angel comes from. It's like,
Gotcha.
I'm not myself anymore. I'm becoming someone I don't know who I am now.
Yeah.
And then obviously when I had nowhere else to go and I decided to run, that was me. I ran away. And then, and the death of my loved one was painful. That's actually referring to myself, because again, I did try to commit suicide. And so the last time I tried to commit suicide, it kind of felt like I lost a part of me. Like I lost something inside of me that I didn't know if it was a good or bad thing that I lost, but I just felt like something died inside of me. And it was really hard for me because I'm like, I just wanted to die.
Yeah.
And I literally could have died.
That's
I was like,
that's real.
Yeah, I was like why? And so then the next part is when I wanted to cry, you took my hand. And so after the experience, I was just in my room. And at the time, so like I lived in a 3-bedroom house, and then me and my brother shared a room, and then my 2 sisters shared a room. But I think at the time they had just like graduated and moved. No, one of my sisters had graduated, the other one was a senior, so she was hardly ever there. So me and my brother kind of like were in separate rooms a little bit, and then he would be at his dad's house or something like that. And so all this is happening. My family is not like a close-knit family. We weren't a close-knit family then. So like all this is happening, and I'm just like on the floor just because of both my eyes. So I'm just like, I'm just confused. I'm hurt. I'm like, so I'm sitting there, and that's what the next part it says. And when I looked at you, you said it's time to take a stand, because he was like, I've just felt like I was like, I'm not going to let you die. Yeah. Like your story is not ended here.
You don't have a choice.
Like I don't have a choice. And I think that was the hardest for me, because it was like, that's all I wanted. And God was like, no.
Yeah.
So, I was like, okay. And then, and I think that moment was the pivotal point. Actually, I know it is. It was the pivotal point of me coming back to Christ. I'm like, clearly God wants me here for a reason. No matter how annoying it is, I'm not going anywhere. So, something has to give. Something has to change. And then the next part is, but as I started to stand up, the wind whispered in my ear and said, you can't. It was just kind of like, girl, what are you doing? Like, you don't have no friends. You're not close with really any of your siblings. You're just kind of there. Just kind of vibing. Like, I go to school. And the thing was so crazy, because at school, everyone thought I was popular. And like, I was like this well-known person, and everyone, like, I don't know if people love me, but like, I spoke to everyone spoke to me, but like, I would literally walk around by myself.
Right.
And I was like, if that was not a clear indication that, I was alone, I don't know what it was, but I don't know. It's so funny to think about it, because all this is happening, and like, I'm hearing, oh, you're a celebrity on campus. I'm like, no, I'm not.
And then you go home and you realize,
like,
you
I'm
can't
alone.
just pick up the phone and call or text.
And also, I was always in trouble, and so I never had my phone. Like, my phone, like, my mama took my phone all the time, and so, and I was just kind of there, which is why I was a reader. And it was kind of like an escape, but like, it just wasn't enough sometimes. But and then the next part, it was, you told me I could do it, and I believed you. But then I thought to myself, is it really true? Because it's always the internal battle, the imposter syndrome, the feeling like, okay, like, I hear you, but like, do I really hear you?
Yeah.
Like,
is this just me?
Like,
or
I'm like, okay, maybe.
Yeah.
Like, we'll see. And it's so funny, because to this day I say that. I'm like, all right, okay. And then the last part was, or was this just a joke like everything else? I've said this many times in a joking mannerism, but at the time I was just like, there's just, what's the point?
Yeah.
Like, this is so unreal. This is so, like, why? Why do you, again, I'm still asking God, why do you want me here? What is my purpose here? I'm tired of being here. But I'm like, clearly you want me here. Let me try to figure out what it is. Let me go try to live another day.
Yep.
And like, for somebody who's never had that feeling of just like not wanting to wake up, that's kind of like, you don't understand how hard it is to wake up every day. But like, and it gets easier over time. Like, now I don't struggle nearly as much, but like, I was just like, man,
when it's
every
heavy,
day I woke up, I was like, here I go again. Like, I gotta live this life again. I gotta do this again. And it's just, I was like, but you know what, God, whatever. And mind you, I'm young, and I also, again, stopped going to church. And so
So this is very real. This isn't like,
Yeah.
oh, you know, a preacher was talking to me and I had
Right.
a come to Jesus moment. Like, this is very unique
Yeah.
for you.
And so it was just literally me and God talking. And that's why, like, for a long time I was like, oh no, I'm not a religious person, I'm a spiritual person, because there wasn't really a religious base behind, like, I had no base behind what was being said.
Yeah.
You know, I just kind of felt it. The next part is the thoughts spoke loud and it felt like I wasn't myself. Because again, I wasn't myself.
Yeah.
I was like, where is this determination coming from? Because
Right.
it's not coming from me. And like, I was in after school activities. I was in like every club you can think of. Like literally from Spanish club to history club to environmental club. Like, I did everything.
Yeah.
I try to keep myself as busy as possible. I'm doing these things, but I don't feel like it's me.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like just like learning yourself again. Like, you're just learning
That's true.
who you are, especially after something like that.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, now that I have to live, who am I? Like,
Let me go try these things and figure
right.
out.
Like, at first I didn't care because I didn't want to be here, but now that I'm going to be here, I mean, I might as well try to figure it out.
Yeah.
And then I put roar was the sound of my inner lion. And for me, that actually was, that part was not actually related to God, but more so, I was in color guard. Color guard plays a huge part of my survival story. Color guard saved me in many ways because I found something that I actually had a passion about. And that's why it means so much to me now, because if I didn't have color guard, I don't know what else I would have been living for at the time.
Yeah.
But at that time, that's what I was living for. I love the rush of color guard. I love every part that goes into making a show. It just, I don't know, it just gave me an excitement. It gave me, like, I was like, oh, okay, I like this. Like, we're gonna do this. And then it was wanting to be free from me. It goes into that. And then, but there was something inside of me, I just wouldn't let it be. It was doubt. It was the self-hate. I hated myself for an extremely long time.
Yeah.
I mean, probably up until, like I said, like 2-3 years ago, I just really did not like myself for a multitude of reasons. Like, I didn't like the way I looked. I was really skinny, had a big head. I didn't like my personality. I was very bitter. I was very mean. I was very closed off. Which again, I just didn't understand why people talk to me. Which is probably why they didn't talk to me consistently. But this is again how I'm viewing myself.
Right.
So that was also
other people on the outside.
Yeah, because I was very good at masking. I was really good at masking.
Yeah.
And so I hid everything. No one knew. My mom didn't find out until I posted a TikTok a few months ago about me even trying to commit suicide. So it was just doubt. It was just a lot. And then the next part was I just couldn't figure out why the world hated me. It was hard. It was raw is how I felt. And sometimes I still feel that way. And I think that's something I'm always going to deal with, is not feeling like the world hates me. Like, it takes the smallest thing and I'm like, oh, they hate me.
Yep.
And I know I joke about, and it's so funny because me and Mike have talked about, I need to stop asking people if they hate me, because now I say in joking mannerism, but at one point it was real.
It was real. It was
and
a
so
real
words
question.
have a lot of power behind them.
Yeah.
And so I really, like, I've been trying my very best to not joke like that anymore.
Right.
But yeah. And then I thought to myself over and over again, and then bam, it hit me. It says, the angel was locked up inside of me. Finally, I told myself it's time to be free. Thank God I'm free. Yes, I'm free indeed. So for that part, like, I just had to end the poem. So I'm not gonna lie to you, like, I needed
A closer.
I needed it to close. I had reached like the line limit or whatever. I was like, okay, I just need to wrap this up. Obviously my story did not end like that.
Right.
It was not that easy. But I did feel better. And then if you look, like, up until college, so I'm not saying like after I attempted suicide, I just stopped having suicidal thoughts or that type of stuff. Like, there was plenty of times when I got to college even that I wanted to flip my car multiple times. I knew exactly where I was going to do it, how I was going to do it. And again, I just kind of dealt with it in silence.
Yeah.
I just was kind of like, But it was like something in me knew I couldn't. And that's what kind of stuck with me. And like that still is what kind of sticks with me, honestly. It's the reason I get up and I live. I have more reasons now, thank God. But that's like one of the main things is like,
right,
you can't do this. And even if you were to do that, you've already seen that it's not going to work.
So don't keep
And so
trying.
I don't know if that was a good reason.
Right.
But like, that was my reason. And that's what that was. The angel inside of me is that piece of spirituality, that piece of God that I was missing. The piece of me that was probably the only good piece that consistently reminded me that this is who I am. That is okay.
Yeah.
You have something worth living for, whether you know it or not. And it was free from the thought of death. Like, I didn't want to be alive, but I didn't want to die.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of what that meant. And like, I don't actually want to physically kill myself.
Yeah.
Like, would I still like to not be here? Yes. However, I don't want to kill myself.
Yes.
And so that's kind of what that last little piece meant.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the poem explained.
So obviously when I read it, I got a little bit of a different interpretation. There were still some of the same themes as far as like self-doubt and like you said, imposter syndrome, which I'm working through right now with this, so I completely understand that. But like, how do you go from thinking those things to kind of like talking yourself out of it? Like, what do you do to make yourself feel like, you know, I am supposed to be here, like I do have a purpose, I do, like, what are the things that kind of remind you, like,
now and now it's a lot easier.
Yeah.
Then I didn't know. Like, I would say from 9th grade all the way up until about 2 years ago, I don't think I would have known how to answer that question. But now I can answer that question.
Yeah.
For me, the main reason I live is because I know that people care about me. I know that it would, if you know anything about me in real life, you know that I am an empath through and through. And so I feel emotions like crazy. And I know the people in my life really care about me. And I know if I were to leave this earth, it would really affect them.
Yes.
And so that's my main reason. That's what kept me going when I first started like going through this. But now, I think for me, it's because I'm interested to see what's next. I think once I hit, so 21 was such a significant, honestly 18, but 21 was such a significant year for me because it was the first time in my life that I wanted to be here. Yeah. Like, I wanted to see what's next. Like, I was like, okay, this life might be all right. Let's see which is crazy because I turned 21 during COVID. So yeah. So like, I just graduated college. Which is enough
pivotal, you know.
But I was just kind of like, I think once I got like away from being in school and the expectations and the pressure and the drama, honestly, of being in college and whatnot, I think I finally realized that I have free will and I can live my life however I want to. I think that my life has shaped out to be a pretty good life. I love my job. I love my side jobs. I love all the little things I get to do. I realized, I think in about probably like my junior year of high school, like, God put me on this earth to help people. And everybody's like, well, so what does that look like? I'm like, I don't know. Yeah. I have no idea. Like, I just know I'm here to help people because people always come to me with their problems, which I thought was so funny because I'm like, y'all just don't understand.
You don't even know.
And I was like, oh, I would love to be like, I said, you don't want to be me. And I used to say that so much. Yeah. I was like, you really don't want to be me. Because who I am on the outside and who I am actually is not the same person.
Too different, yeah.
And so, yeah. I would say that. I would say the excitement of not knowing what's next, which for me is a big statement.
Yeah. Especially at this time.
Yeah. Yeah. And that I think is a recent discovery. But I really honestly just really love my community. Yeah. And I would be really sad to impact them in that way, honestly. Right. That's the real reason why I have an eagerness to get up every day.
Because you never know.
Because I've lost people, and I think that kind of changed my perspective on it because, you know, they couldn't help it. Yeah. And it's like, how selfish would I be to do something like that
and put them through,
and put someone through all that pain? Because I know what it feels like, and I just couldn't.
Yeah, I
couldn't put someone through that.
Like, I think of others, and then I think of like how God must feel Like, if he's put so much in us
Yeah.
and he doesn't get to see it prosper and go
Yeah.
because you decided to, not persevere and go through one more day, that's another thing to think about as well.
Yeah.
And
I have thought about it. Yeah, I've thought about that because I'm like, and I tell people all the time, I say, clearly there's a reason I'm here. And for some people, they just take that as face value.
mm-hmm.
But, like, for the people who actually know me and kind of know my story, they're like,
Clearly, yeah.
there's a reason you're here. But, yeah. And I also think my family now, too. Like, I really love my family. Like,
mm-hmm.
I didn't not love them before. But, like, I think the deaths that happened in our family were so significant that it kind of brought us closer together.
Yeah.
And they really... And I'm so thankful for. I was sad, but I'm thankful for it.
Yeah, I always say, like, death is either going to bring separation within families or it's going to bring, closeness. And if you're fortunate to become closer to your family through that, it's kind of like
I couldn't imagine.
Yeah.
I couldn't imagine not having my family and my friends around me. But also, I would like to say this because I do think this is a disclaimer and it's important to know when hearing just anybody talk about suicide.
Yeah.
Being a suicide survivor means that you survive the attempts.
Mm-hmm.
But that's something that most people live with for their whole lives.
Right.
It's not something that just goes away.
Yeah.
And so, yes, I'm in a healthier state. However, it's something that I have to actively fight every day.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's a choice.
Yeah.
And that's why I try to tell my students specifically, like, you have a choice. They greatly impact you.
Right.
And people just don't understand how lucky they are to just be alive and be here and to exist. It's not something I take lightly anymore.
And it's not talked about enough, and I don't think the conversations around suicide and suicide prevention are as productive as they could be. It's more of a like, just go get counseling and, go get help. But a lot of the people suffering don't even know what steps to take.
Like, help with what?
Yeah.
Like, I can't help that I have an empty feeling inside of me.
Like, how do you go to somebody and say, now fix that, And it's in times like that, it's like the only one that can really get it and understand is God, you know. And sometimes it takes things like that for you to realize and understand, like, I need to have a relationship with God myself. Because like you said, you didn't have that church home growing up. You didn't have a pastor telling you, oh, you need to be in church and you need to do this. You didn't have that. And so you came to salvation through your own experience. And that's so important to point out, because you don't have to be just this perfect, I grew up in the church mindset to experience God and to experience the transformation and, the salvation and all of that. And I think that's important. I think it's important for people to know, even if you've suffered through suicidal thoughts and suicidal attempts, like, God has not forgotten about you. He's not gonna just be like, well, you don't want the life I gave you, so, whatever. Like, it's completely the opposite, and even more so. And he's not gonna stop. He's not gonna let up. So
he just most definitely does not.
it's very encouraging to know that once you give him just an inch, he'll take the mile, and you'll be able to see, like, wow, I'm so glad that I got what I needed. And you can now look at this poem and see how far you've come.
Yeah, it honestly makes me very emotional. I'm so surprised I haven't cried. Like, it is so insane to think that I was once this person.
Yeah.
Because I'm so different now.
Right.
Like, I don't know. I had to fight really hard though. And so mental health is so important to me. And I am extremely proud of anybody who fights and deals with loneliness in general. Like, not even thinking about suicidal thoughts and things like that, but just loneliness, because it's such a hard place to be in. Like, being lonely or feeling alone without God, it's the worst place.
It's a very
dark
place to be in. And it's not like you can, go watch a funny movie and then it goes away. Like, you really have to dig deep and do a complete 360 to get yourself out of that.
And there's distractions.
There's so many distractions. And if you don't have a community and it's really just you and God, like, in those moments, that's what sticks with you. And it kind of also reminds you that, like, even if in 10 years you have nobody again, you'll always have God. And
it's crazy because I remember, like, I prayed to God all the way up until I met my best friend, and I'm so thankful for Victoria.
Yeah.
Listen to this, I love you. And I mean that.
Hey, Victoria.
But honestly, up until her, she honestly saved me, and she don't even know it because I prayed for friends for so long, and it's like every friend. Oh, and Derek and Jimmy, I'm not gonna forget them, but like in a different capacity, I've never had a girlfriend. Like I've never had a girlfriend that was just like, yes. Like I'm not envious of you.
We're not
like,
in competition.
We're not in competition.
No
like I'm just here for you, and I'm going to support you, and I'm going to be there for you. And like, just God blessed me with friends was in itself like keeping a promise to me. He's like, if you live, I promise you it gets better. And I'm like, now at 25, I have a community.
Yes, you think about all
you talk about crying. I could cry for hours.
Man.
Over the community
great
that I have
experiences
now, and the relationships that I'm still building.
Yeah,
like I've met some amazing people this year.
Yeah, that
have completely changed a piece of my story now. Yeah. And it's just so crazy that God just like you just have to trust me,
right?
And I'm like, God,
you don't know. Sometimes you are lucky enough to find out, but a lot of times you don't know how you affect and
because I know
impress upon others.
I know me going through that. I can only imagine the stuff I put on other people. Yeah, like I feel terrible. That's why I hated myself so much. And if I could go apologize to every single person that knew me then, I would, because I know. Yeah, I know I just was not who I needed to be, and that's something that I struggled with for a long time. Yeah, because I was like that. I'm so sorry. And I traumatized you.
And even with that, giving yourself grace and knowing like there's just some times where it wasn't anything you could help. Yeah. And
I literally couldn't. I was like, I'm literally, and I used to tell people this all the time, I said I'm literally just trying to stay alive. Yeah. I was like, I cannot think about anything other than being alive.
Things you guys think about, or the things you think are important, because I'm trying to make sure.
Relationship wise, that's why I have terrible well, that's not the only reason, but like that is a very big part of why I have not been able to, I was not able to, because words matter, to maintain healthy relationships like romantically, because
it plays a part.
You want to get that close to me, like I am severely depressed. Like I don't think you understand.
If you're not even that close to yourself, how can you allow somebody else
hard.
to
and then
say?
The one time I did it didn't go well. Since then, after that, I was like, thank God for growth.
Yeah, that's really what it is. Learning to love the person that God created you to be first before you allow anything else to come in and do that. That's not taught in the books.
No.
It's not taught in the books.
And that's why this is so personal to me. Like my relationship with God, especially now, is so personal because I have been running and I have been afraid. And I'm like, and I was thinking about this the other day after I listened to this. I was like, I fight so hard to be here, and I still don't want to do what God is asking me to do. I was like, he was like, I literally kept you alive to do what I'm asking you to do, and you won't do it. And I'm just kind of like, you know what? Yeah. What am I doing? Right. And I think after that, it kind of clicked to me, and that's what I was telling you, you know, yesterday. I was kind of like, I was like, I get it. Yeah. Like that's what I was missing. Right. Like, I just have to take my hands off of it. Right. And just do what he asked. Just let him, that's it. I'm like,
let him work. And that's going back to the poem. Like, you knew, like the little bit you did know about God was enough to propel you to say, like, I'm going to trust you. And I think about people who, you know, are so far away from God, who had some type of upbringing or have some knowledge, and I'm like, if you just lean into that one bit of truth, like, you don't know how far it's going to take you.
It literally takes just one little ounce of faith. Yeah. The faith of a mustard seed.
I'm telling you.
Which is crazy because that was our Bible study yesterday.
Bible study,
it literally takes that much, because that's all I had. Right. I didn't have any more than that.
Yeah. And I mean, church is great. Do not get me wrong. Yeah. But I do feel and empathize with the people who have been hurt by church, because my family has been hurt by the church. And so a couple years ago, I had prayed really earnestly, and it was very random because I hadn't thought anything about church. But I had prayed that God will, show me a place that I could go and serve him and not be judged or feel like I have to be a certain way. And that's very important because church is community. Like, you want to be in the right community. And there's so many different and skewed and exaggerated views about church. So it's very hard to just step in one place and be like, oh yeah, I fit in, I belong here.
Yeah.
It's like a clique or a friend group. Like, if you don't fit in, it's going to be hard to keep communicating with them.
But the other thing about the church, and I think this is and again, this is my opinion, I think it's because of how, again, my perspective on it. But a church is not a building. A church is a community. And if you have the right community around you, like my friends now, that's my church. Yeah. Like, we can sit, we can talk about God, we can talk about our struggles, we can talk about what it looks like to be vulnerable. Right. And what we need to work on. Yeah. Like, that's what church is meant there for. Yeah. Like, and we can pull up on YouTube a sermon. And have a, we can have church in the living room. We can have church anywhere. And I'm seeing that more, like we talked about our Bible study. We've been really deep into the book of Matthew and talking about Jesus and when he walked the earth. Like, he didn't call them all to the synagogue, and he didn't call them all to a church building. He went to them. Like, and when he did go into the synagogue, he had to, flip some tables. Yeah. They weren't doing what they're supposed to be doing anyway. So it's like, I think about that and I stopped beating myself up about it, because for a while, for people who knew who my dad was, they were like, your dad is always ministering and preaching. Why are you not in church? And I would receive backlash from that. And so I used to be like, oh gosh, like, I gotta find a church. I gotta be in church. And it was like, every church I went to, it was just not, it was not it. And so I would feel guilty and be like, okay, God, well, maybe I'm just not, where I need to be at in you. But it's not always that. Sometimes God is calling you to just do a small group or do a study group or have a Bible study with one or two people until he feels like, I need you to be in this church. But don't feel like I can't have a relationship with God if I don't go to church or if I'm not involved. Because I used to feel real guilty. And God was like, what are you doing differently than the people who go to church? Right. Sometimes I'm still ministering, I'm still discipling, I'm still letting him use me the same way that people who go to church. Sometimes it takes that frame of thinking to see, like, I'm not that far away from God as I think I am. Yeah. And as I've been going through my writing and seeing, like, the growth in my life and the things that I've been through, the things that I struggle with and the things that I don't struggle with anymore, that is why I write. Because, I can close it, not think about it anymore, and then a few months down the line I can open it and be like, oh wow, like, I need to still work on this, or I don't even think about that anymore. So the point of all of it is to minister and help somebody else who may be going through the same thing. And I feel like this specific topic, too many people go through. Yeah, especially in the Black community. Yes. And it's not talked about enough. It's and I wish it was different, but I know the reality of it, and I understand why it's not, because we're strong. Yeah. We're independent people. We're supposed to be this resilient bunch. Yeah. And you'd be surprised, but a lot of people call me resilient. That's like one of the main words that they use to describe me, and I'm like, yeah. Okay. But I mean, you are. Yeah, you gotta realize, like, but like the context behind it, I'm just like, if y'all only knew. If you like, you think I'm resilient because I stayed till 8:00 on work for a day, at work for a day. But if you only knew what it meant to be here till 8:00, knowing that my mental health, I need a break. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. Yep. Yeah. I'm drained, man. But obviously, like, it is good to know that you just stuck it out one more day and that you just kept trying one more time. And I still tell myself that every day. I'm like, it's a constant fight. And I think about in the Bible where it says, like, every day your flesh has to die. Like, it's a constant sacrifice to be a follower of Jesus, and that's real. Yes. Like, that is real. It's very real. You have to fight against yourself every day to make the conscious choice and decision, like, I'm not going to do this because I am following Christ. This is my morals. This is my belief. And stand with it. Yes. That's the hardest part, because society is going to tell you to not.
Right.
Why not just follow that first
and
up front, and let's see how it play out versus having to cover it or mask it with something else before I get to the same conclusion.
Correct.
I think I'm so proud of you. I love that you're doing this. I can't say this enough. Y'all just don't understand, and I hope she keeps this in there. Like,
oh Lord,
I am so proud of her because we've talked about this. I prayed over this for her, whether she knows it or not. And
yes,
I just know this is something that God is truly calling her to do, and it's just. I tell Micah all the time, she's probably one of the biggest blessings to come into my life because she came in at the most chaotic point.
Yes. For both of us.
Yes. Transitioning back in here, and we just have such a similar story as she talked about, and so
yeah,
it's just truly a blessing.
It is. Yeah. And we started because we had classes together, but we weren't we weren't in each other's lives. Yeah. She was about to end a chapter and I was just starting. Yeah. You know, I came in as a freshman and she was graduating as a senior, and so it was just so crazy to see how God planned it to where she would still be around, and years later we would connect. And
now we got
I also did
tattoos.
I know. I also did color guard, and she was my instructor, and that's how it started. And then we started working together, and you know, it's just crazy to think about how God places the people He wants you to be around at the time He wants. Because we could have hit it off in 2019,
and we would have been having.
I don't think it would have been. I don't think it would have been crazy.
We would have been running up the school.
Yeah, it would have. We would have definitely been a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
But God, like I said, His timing and His way of doing things is very intentional. Because if we didn't meet at the time we did, and the closeness that we were in, like, who knows what would have happened, right, and where we would be. And I do appreciate the fact that He has kept us together for this amount of time, because all of our biggest pivotal things have happened kind of simultaneously.
Yeah.
And it's like, I think about if I were to have stayed at home and continue doing school online and not come on campus, and where I would be at, I would probably be alone in a lot of the stuff that I went through in the past 4 or 5 years. And so it's very refreshing to know that we share a lot, and we can help each other, keep each other accountable, and go through things and know.
But it's also good because we're also so different that we also bring 2 different perspectives into our life.
But
I think a good prompt, it was I think the question was, what part of yourself are you hiding from yourself? Yeah, I think that's what it was. I saw it somewhere, I think on Twitter or something.
Yeah,
it was like, and I was like, that's a
deep.
Good question.
Yeah,
because like it's different to hide from the world,
right?
Like, to hide it from yourself. But what are you hiding from yourself?
And that is gonna cause a lot of deep self-reflection.
Yeah.
Because that's gonna, you have to be honest. you can't fake that. But yeah, that's good. So yeah, thank you for coming on the show.
Of course.
This is the very first time I've ever been in a hosting position, so this is, again, doing this together.
I love it, yeah. Especially with you.
Doing this together. And again, if you guys who are listening feel led to write, it doesn't always have to be shared, but if you feel led to write, do it. It doesn't matter if it's just one journal entry or one short story, whatever, because you'll be able to look back at it and know and gauge how far you've come. And it's really encouraging and inspiring to see how far you've come, especially if you're in a place like of uncertainty and you're like, I don't know if I can do this, I don't know if I can persevere, and then you see it and you're like, if I could come out of this spot, you know, I can come out of the next rough spot. So thank you all for listening, and I will talk to you guys in the next episode.